morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody's watching our show again. And thank you for your time spending with us. And today we have our special guest, Miss Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here with you all today.
It
I
is
was glad to see you, and we're happy to still able to connect you virtually. And today our show is to learn more about you, and we love to hear your story. You know who you are, what you're doing, and maybe we want to learn a lot for that motivation. So, Lisa, would you please share with us a bit about yourself?
So probably the thing I'm the best known for is I'm the author of a book called Selling with Noble Purpose. And so I work with entrepreneurs and sales leaders around the world to bring a greater sense of purpose to their sales effort. And we often think the words noble purpose and selling do not go together because we think that sales is about techniques and talking people into things and getting people to do something they don't want to do, or presenting yourself in kind of a showy way. But actually, the research tells us that the top performing salespeople are actually driven by a sense of noble purpose. And salespeople who truly want to help their customers outperform salespeople who are just focused on their own targets.
Thanks, Lisa. You have been ranked by Global Guru as a top 20 global, sales expert in the world, and then we wanna know that secret. What makes you to become who you are today. So allow Vivian and I to bring you to a younger version of Lisa. When we were, when we were young, we always have dream of what we want to be. Vivian wanted to become a singer. She did not become one. I wanted to become an astronaut. I did not become one. So when you were young, Lisa, what did you dream when you grow up one day? What kind of job you're gonna do? What kind of life that you're gonna become? Can you share with us?
I didn't have a specific dream, and I'll tell you, I'm very fortunate. I'm an American, and I am in my 50s. And so I was the first generation of girls where someone actually said, what profession do you want to have when you grow up? People didn't ask my mother that. She did have a profession, but people didn't ask her that. So when I was a young girl, I didn't know many women with professions. My mother was a teacher. I knew that a couple of the ladies in the neighborhood went off to this mysterious place called The Office. I didn't even know what that was. And I used to watch, there was a show on television, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And she worked at a television station. And I thought, well, that looks good. That looks like way more fun than anybody that I know that has a job. So I never really was really clear. I thought that I wanted to go to the Olympics as a gymnast. That was not even in the cards. My knees started hurting by the time I was 12. So that was not going to happen. I thought that maybe I might want to be an actress. Then I thought maybe that I wanted to be, one time I thought I wanted to be a minister. But when I look back on all those dreams, and I really was envious of the people who had a clear path, who said, I want to be a doctor, and they were so clear. But what I see between me dancing around all those things, I see two things that were really apparent. One, and it's so clear, I'm in my 50s now, it's so clear, but I look back and one, I see that I wanted to be in some place that was inspiring for people, part of something where people felt good, they were doing something exciting. I see that was clear to me. And the other thing that I see that was clear to me is I was envisioning something that didn't exist yet. And I think this is really important because when you look at what you want to be, you're looking at the known models. And I didn't know that you could write a book about purpose in sales. I didn't know that there was a whole big business helping companies get more excited and more inspired. And maybe there was a business doing that back then, but I think the thing that I look back on And I see, especially for young people jump too fast and they think, well, what do you want to be? And they're looking at the known models. And if you're listening to this and you're under, probably even my age, what you want to be in 20 years might not exist. So if you're looking at the known models, that's the wrong place. But what I see going back is I see this idea that I had that I couldn't have quite locate, that work can be really fun. Work can be exciting. You can have a purpose about what you do. But I didn't know there was a profession in that. And so I think for younger people to really look inward and say, if the ideas seem really vague, that's okay. Because you're having your sense of you, and the sense of you probably transcends a profession.
Lisa, a lot of people get into the known the known model because it's easier. We can see the success story, we can see things that ahead of us, and then you chose to do it in the reverse way. You chose to envision the world. It's not in the known area. So, what did you give you the courage to do that at the very early age? I think it's 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, I don't know that I saw it back then, to be honest. I want to be really honest. I actually felt kind of bad because I didn't know like all these other people knew. But I remember this one moment, when you look back, things are so clear. There was this one moment, one of my first jobs, I think it was my very first job besides babysitting. I worked for the Donut King in Arlington, Virginia on Wilson Boulevard. It was right outside Washington, D.C., and it was before there were all these chains. It was a guy. He was an immigrant. I think he was from Vietnam. His name was Mr. Kim, and he owned 3 Donut Kings. Okay, he owned these 3 Donut Kings, and I worked at one of them, and I served at the counter. And this is back in the days before you could pay with a card. Everybody paid in cash. At the Donut King because it was really cheap. And one Saturday, he left me in charge of the store. And I was like 14. So that means he trusted me with the cash register. So that was a big deal. And while Mr. Kim was gone, this fireman came in. And he goes, how many donuts do you have in the store right now? And I was like, well, let me count. I think we have like 300 or 400. He goes, no, do you have more in the back? I need all the donuts. I need all the donuts right now. So I'm like running to the back and everything. What do we have? And sold every donut in the whole store that we had. Every single donut, battered up some more, got them all ready, sold all these donuts. And he peels off these $20 bills. And you got to keep in mind, like our average sale was like $2 or $3 for these donuts, back in 1980 or whatever it was. And so he peels off all this money. And Mr. Kill comes back in at like noon. He's only been gone for like 3 or 4 hours. He comes back in and there's no donuts. And he looks at me like what he did. And I said, look in the cash register. And there's all this money in the cash register. And I remember his eyes just lighting up because there's all this money in the cash register. And I look back at that moment and I realized, now I didn't do anything spectacular because the fireman walked in, okay, and he's buying, donuts for the whole firehouse. So I didn't do anything spectacular. But in that moment, I just remember, if I look back at young Lisa, I remember I would tell her right now, this moment of helping somebody's business be successful and seeing the look on his face when he made all this money, the most money he's ever made, and this is your moment, girl. This little 14-year-old Lisa, you just did something here that you need to multiply again and again and again. And I just remember how exciting that was. And I didn't know at the time that it was a big moment for me. But the fact that I still remember it and I can still picture the look on his face. I mean, he's an immigrant. He's barely got it together. He's running these 3 donut shops and he sees a giant pile of $20 bills, the most money we've ever had in our cash register, ever. And I just, if I could look back, I would say to 14-year-old Lisa, helping someone make money is a noble calling. helping someone make money in an honest way, in a way that they're proud of, is really, really exciting. And I know that, at least in my country, we're starting to see some of the problems with capitalism and some of the income inequality and all of those things. But I will tell you, there has yet to be a better system for lifting people out of poverty. And I just, a lot of times people feel like focusing on making money is dirty and it's icky. And I disagree. If you're doing something you're proud of and you're charging a fair price for it, and then what you're doing is making other people's lives better, you have every right to make money off of it.
Wow. You still remember the moment of the 14 years old Lisa vividly like that. So, and from that time, you found your calling to start, get into the career of selling and be an expert at selling, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Did I find my calling? It's obvious in hindsight that it was a big moment for me. But I think this idea of a calling, some people feel I'm called to help people be healthy. I'm called to be a nurse. I'm called to be a doctor. This idea of a calling, I think, puts a lot of pressure on people. If you feel called to heal people, if you feel called to be a teacher. But I think this idea of a calling does put a lot of pressure on people, undue pressure. I think your job in life should be meaningful and you should experience joy. Not all joy, part of it's work. There's a reason you get paid for it. But when I look back, I can see the moments where I was becoming more of me. And that's what I would say to people, is the moments where you're becoming more of you. Lean into those moments because it's taking you somewhere. And I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to work for 25 more years. I may be a TV producer. I don't know. But I think I have a clearer sight line as to my skills and to what gets me excited. I can safely say, I'm never going to be a firefighter. I'm never going to be a nurse. I'm never going to be a doctor. I probably couldn't have said that at 14, but there's a lot of stuff that's off the table. But I think there's some great advice. I'm supposed to be talking about iBooks, but I have a good friend, a woman named Dory Clark. You should have her on.
Yes.
She wrote a book called The Long Game. And one of the things that she talks about is lean into the interesting. Just lean in to what's interesting to you. And especially if you're young and if you're interested in painting, you're going to have a lot of people tell you you will never make any money as an artist. And that might be true. You might not be a good enough artist to make money, or you might be a really good artist and still not make any money. But if you lean into your interest of painting, you're going to meet people in the art world. You're going to find out that somebody has to have the job of selling art. Somebody has to be an artist agent. Somebody has to, there's so many ways to make money if you lean into the interesting. And for me, the thing that's that I've come to realize, the thing that is the most interesting to me is helping people experience joy, purpose, and meaning at work.
Earlier,
I can't even stand the idea that people go to work and they hate their job. I can't rest on this earth when a lot of people are going to work hating their job. Now, that's not to say there aren't soldiers and people working in hot, dirty factories, that those jobs are really, really hard. They're not going to be as glamorous as being a TV producer. But yet, if you look at those jobs, if your job is in some way contributing to something that makes people's lives better or more fun or happier, if you're making surfboards, if you're doing, building, patios, whatever it is, there's some impact to your work. And the more you can lean into how does my work make a difference, the more animated and meaningful your life will become.
Wow. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And it resonates a lot to me together with the thing that you said earlier. A lot of people jump off the boat too quick. So if we can stick around with what we in the area interest for long enough, then we will be able to find what the works that meaningful for us and for others, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of my interests is musical theater. I'm probably never going to, be on Broadway, but it's an interest of mine. And so the more I can be around that, maybe it'll just be for fun, or maybe some Broadway producer will go, our cast has been through a hard time. We need to find our noble purpose. Come on in and help us. And then so if you're listening out there, you got a theater company. But I think the thing is, one of the things that's happened is, if you go back 100 years, there were a lot of people doing things and making things that they could see the direct impact of their work. Now, there were a lot of people very unhappy, a lot of people that were in indentured servitude. My family came over to my country as indentured servants. So there were a lot of people that had really hard lives. I don't want to minimize that. But people had a closer connection to the output of their work. And now what's a shame is you get in these big companies, and a lot of times they're making something that's actually really helpful to people. They're making laundry detergent or technology or banking or something that's actually really helpful. But the people are so far removed from it, they just feel like cogs in a machine. And it doesn't have to be this way. The best companies, so the research tells us, the best companies are the companies that have a purpose bigger than money, where they're really trying to improve life for customers. And it's not just, we're trying to make the environment nice. Like, they make something or do something that actually improves the lives of their customers. So the best companies have that noble purpose. In fact, the research tells us those companies outperform the market by over 350%. And the happiest people at work, the most engaged people, the most productive people, know how their work matters. So if you picture a big company has a purpose, if each person in it understands, like we worked with a tech company, and their purpose was, we make small businesses more successful. Yeah. So you don't have to be changing the world. If you are, good on you. But all you have to do is have clarity that what I'm doing is actually helpful to someone. And it's a game changer for your job.
With that being said, there was a lot of issue happen in corporate around the world, which leading to the great resignations these days. And I think that will continue to rise, right? Is that something that related to the book that you write, Leading with Noble Purpose?
Yes.
Can you share that with us? Why did you write that book, and on what occasions, and what triggered that?
So when you think about the Great Resignation, there's a lot of factors going on. There's what happened during COVID for a lot of people is similar to what's happened in a variety of countries during a wartime. And so I'll give an example. In my country, there's a lot of mythology around World War II. And a lot of people write books and have movies about that. Because it's a time when everyone pauses and thinks, who am I? Why am I here? What matters to me? And so that happened to people during COVID. Another parallel would be if you've ever lost a parent or had a health problem or had a big financial problem, a life crisis, where you pause and you say, who am I? Why am I here? What do I want to do with my time on this earth? That happened during COVID.
Yep.
And much like a war, it happened to everyone together. And so, and so in that moment, when people had time to breathe, when people had time to think, wow, even if you were home and you had plenty of food and your family was fine and you were fine, you knew people who weren't. You probably knew people who got really sick. You probably knew people who died. So all of a sudden, this idea that I don't have forever. How am I spending my time? That is one of the factors that led to the Great Resignation, because people looked around and went, I've been spending how much of my day at work and I don't even like it here. Why am I doing that? Or it puts a lot of pressure on managers because they've said, my boss is kind of a jerk. He doesn't or she doesn't care about me. I don't want to spend my life working for a jerk. And so what I would say is it's more of a great reawakening. And there's a belief, I don't know how it is in your country, but in my country, there's a belief, there was a belief floating around, well, people just don't want to work. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a minute. What people don't want is they don't want meaningless work. They don't want to be a cog in a giant machine that doesn't care about them. And so when you talk about the Great Resignation, we're busy, our consulting firm is busier than we've ever been, and I love it. Because 10 years ago, when I was talking about purpose at work, I had the kinds of companies that called me were founder-led companies, where they said, I want all my employees to see how our software is changing the world. I want all our employees to know how our travel programs are changing the world. Now, we have big companies calling us because leaders are saying, we have got to put some sense of purpose into our employees' lives or they're just going to quit. And one of the things that I always say is, if you treat your employees like a number, they will return the favor. If you view your employees as just an asset, a resource, like some machine, and they're nothing more than a cog in the machine, they're going to treat your company and your customers like they're just a number too. So I'll repeat that. If you treat your employees like a number, they will return the favor. And they will treat your customers like a number, and they will treat you like a number. And so what we're seeing now, when people pause, is this deep yearning for purpose and meaning. The sad thing that's happening is it is present in a lot of companies, only they're not amplifying it. You know, banking. Banking makes a huge difference in people's lives, and you read these bank mission statements, and they talk about wanting to help people with their financial future and all that, but then you get down in the organization, and every day is like, it's so boring, what are we doing? And so the challenge is taking a feeling and amplifying it all the way through an organization. But we know it can be done because we've seen it happen. We've done it in companies. We see it happen in companies where everybody has this feeling. And we also see it happen in the negative. We see a negative feeling go all the way down through an organization. Happens faster than a positive one. But it can be done.
Yep.
We can create this positive feeling inside a company. And a lot of people are trying to throw money at the problem. And say, well, let's give our employees these perks. That's helpful. Let's pay our employees a fair wage. You should do that. But you have to go beyond that. People have to see the work that this company does actually makes a difference to our customers. We're actually doing something that's helpful. And that's what you've got to get down through an organization. And you particularly have to get it in the hearts and minds of your salespeople.
And Lisa, each person will have a different purpose in life, right? There's a lot of people living on autopilot when they don't have they couldn't find the passion, they couldn't find yet the purpose in life, and for them it's already hard already. Now go into the organization, and as a leader, we need to have to inject the purpose. of the organization. To them also, it's a very hard job for us to do. How can we advise, the leaders out there to be able to build that for their employees? Can you share that?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to understand is profit is not a purpose.
Okay.
Your employees do not exist to make money for the shareholders, and your company does not exist to make money for the shareholders.
Mm.
You must hit your financial targets, but your true north, the purpose of the company is to improve life for customers. That's it. If you can't articulate that, how you improve life for customers, you're going to have a very hard time getting emotional engagement of your employees. So, number one, how do we improve life for customers? You have to be able to articulate that with specificity. So I'll give you some examples. And these are all in the book, Selling with Noble Purpose and Leading with Noble Purpose. So one of our clients said, we help small businesses be more successful because they did IT services for small businesses. Another one of our clients is a bank, and they said, we fuel prosperity. So it's more than a tagline. It's a clear articulation of how you make a difference to customers. That's your purpose. Then, once you have that, the next step is stories and examples of how you've done that. So that's where it's not just a tagline. That's where your employees see, oh, this is what we do. On our best day, we do make a difference to our customers. This is what we're doing. So that's the next step, is the stories. Then the next step, which I'm making it like it's a step, but it actually takes a while, is every single department in your company needs to be able to see how they contribute to that. How do we contribute to our purpose? And every employee needs to see how they contribute to the purpose. So I'll give you another example. A major company called Flight Center. They are the world's global leader in travel. Their noble purpose is, we care about delivering amazing travel experiences. So they need to figure out, how can we show we care? How can we better deliver? How can we make sure the travel experiences are amazing? And then that goes all the way through the company. So a lot of companies, when they come up with a purpose, we call it the noble purpose. They come up with mission, vision. They say, we want to be number one in our market. We want to be the leader. We want to be a good corporate citizen, blah, 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 blah. And it's all fine and well, but there's no teeth to it. There's nothing for your employees to grab and say, that's what we do. So it has to be specific. It's halfway between, we want to change the world and we provide IT services. So it's got to be, your noble purpose defines your lane and your aim. And it is always about how you want to make a difference to customers. Yes, you want to be a good employer. Yes, you want to not damage the earth. Yes, you want to be a good community person. But the center of your commercial business is, how are we making a difference to customers? That's it. Clarity on that is what gets people out of bed in the morning. People don't get out of bed in the morning on fire to be a good corporate citizen, serve our communities, hit our profit metrics. People get out of bed in the morning to create amazing travel experiences. People get out of bed in the morning to help small businesses be more successful. That's the through line of the company.
Wow. Thanks a lot for sharing the tips, from the purpose, then to the storylines, and then, cascade out to all the operations where the people will be able to see how they contribute to that part of, the change that they are creating for, their clients, for the organizations, and then for the people around them. So why, after that you write the book, Selling with Noble Purpose? Now we're leading already, now it's very cascade out into the divisional, the functional of selling, and then now it's a selling with noble purpose. Would you share with us that?
Well, most people think that the sales organization is, I don't know how well this will translate, they're mercenaries.
Mm.
They're the ones that just go out and close it. All they care about is money. But what our research tells us is the highest performing salespeople actually care deeply about improving life for customers. And so what often happens is you'll have a well-intended company that does in fact have a purpose and everyone understands it. But somehow when it comes to sales, it all goes out the window. And the message the salespeople get is close it, close it, close it. And so the salespeople wind up being very transactional with their customers. And there's nothing wrong with being transactional and just going out and trying to sell, but you won't be differentiated. And what we see in transactional sales organizations, they can be good, but they'll never be exceptional. Because when your sales team's true north is hit the number, hit the number, hit the number, they create that transactional relationship with customers. And so you tend to have to resell the business every year. You tend to, things come down to price because you're not differentiated. And so in our work with large sales teams and some small ones, what we do is we take that purpose, and sometimes we have to create it with the company because they don't have it yet. And sometimes the company already has a purpose, and our job is to activate it in the sales team. And so imagine the difference. We'll take our We Help Small Businesses Be More Successful. If I'm a salesperson and my company's purpose is, for me as a salesperson, is to hit my number, and I come call on you and I say, okay, I got to sell this deal. I got to close this thing. I got to hit my number. I got to sell them our consulting services. Who am I thinking about? I'm thinking about me. But if our company's purpose is we help small businesses be more successful, and I come call on you and I think my job is to help this person be more successful and figure out how I can help them be more successful, we're going to have a completely different conversation. And the research tells us I will close a bigger deal, I will close a higher margin deal, and I will close a stickier deal. Because the whole interaction has been about me trying to figure out how I can help you be more successful, instead of me trying to figure out how you can help me be more successful. And so it kind of goes against the prevailing wisdom, but I'll give you one of the things we teach sales managers is if a seller is about to go into a call, the typical questions you would ask that seller are, when are you going to close it? How much is it going to be? Who's the competition? Do you have the decision makers in the room? That's what most sales coaches would ask their seller. And those are all very important questions, but they get the seller thinking about themselves. So we add one question to that, and we teach sales coaches this. If you ask your seller, we call it the game-changing question, how will this customer be different as a result of doing business with us? If I can get my seller thinking about that before a sales call, I put their mind where I want it to be, which is on the customer, and not just generally on the customer, but on how will we improve the customer? How will they be different on the customer impact? And if I ask my seller that before the call, I've pointed their mind where I need it to be for them to make a successful call. If they can't answer the question, how will the customer be different as a result of doing business with us? They can't answer it before the call. Very unlikely they're going to be able to answer it very well during the call. So I know we need to do a little more homework. But that is the game-changing question. And it is the difference between a seller who goes into sales calls thinking about themselves and a seller who goes into sales calls thinking about the customer. And in the book, we outline how some of these companies, this single flip, it's a mindset flip, it has driven such exponential revenue growth. We have a concept in our country that we call the unicorns, which are companies that have over $1 billion valuation. And we have helped a couple of those. Hootsuite is one. They became a unicorn. SalesLoft is another. They became a unicorn. And it's because when they were scaling their sales team, we wrote about this for Harvard Business Review, they had this noble purpose orientation. And they were able to scale quickly. They were differentiated. It gave them a huge competitive advantage.
Wow. Wow. Vivian, would you like to
Lisa,
ask? Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah,
Mm.
the seller normally have, to incentive seller, normally they have a reward system. So a
Yes.
lot of companies now are changing to like, as a company, we should share that reward to everybody as a stakeholder, making sales maybe less incentive to close the deal or to look at the whole thing as the purpose.
Right.
From your experience, how would we help, seller to be more inspired that the results can be shared? And that is another noble purpose, what we're doing.
So a lot of people think because I wrote Selling with Noble Purpose that I don't believe in commission sales. Nothing could be further from the truth. I absolutely believe in commission sales. And the people who go out and produce the revenue for the company should be rewarded. And the people who sell the most should make the most. What I also see is that it is up to sales management to be coaching the sellers for a long view and not just talking about this month's number, this month's number, this month's number. Because the reality is you want your salespeople to hang around for a while. So I want to address two issues that the first one that you brought up in sharing the revenue. We are also seeing more creative incentive plans where sales people are still commissioned, but we also have customer success and product development and all kinds of things like that. And so as you think about employees in an organization, I don't want to make any hard and fast rules, but incentivizing everyone to help customers is always a good thing. So there's that point. The second point, though, is around sales coaching. A lot of the sales management is what's driving salespeople to have these short-term focuses. And so you've got two issues. One, you've got a compensation issue that you have to make right and fair. But the second issue is, what are you talking about every day? And I'll give you an example. If you have your big sales meeting, and folks come in and we say, okay, here's Susan. She was our #1 sales rep. She gets a check for $25,000. Isn't Susan amazing? She sold more than the rest of you. Woo! Half the room is going to be sitting there seething with envy going, that's Susan. That should have been me up there. But you can do the exact same thing with the exact same compensation program and bring Susan in and say, this is Susan. She sold the most. Let's talk about how many customers she helped this year. She helped this customer. She helped this customer. In fact, we brought in her best customer, and they're going to talk about how much Susan helped them. Yay! This is what we all do, is help customers. Susan helped the most customers this year, so she's getting a check for $25,000. Let's take in, we all help customers, and next year, let's see who can help the most customers, because they'll be up here. You have completely reoriented the reward. The reward isn't because you were a mercenary and you beat out all your other people. It's because you gave the most number of customers the access to the valuable thing that you're selling. And so the whole language, and language is always the tell, the language of the way that we talk about these things is what sets the belief in the hearts and minds of our people. So I'll give you a different example that probably everyone can relate to. In my country, everybody in the school system is all hopped up on test scores. We have been for decades. Test scores, test scores, test scores. So I could say, how are the history test scores? How are the test scores? How are the test scores? Ooh, Susan got the highest test scores. Bill got the second highest test scores. Test scores, test scores, test scores. Or I could say, how much are we learning? How much are we learning here? How much do we understand history? Oh, Susan appears to understand it quite well because she got the highest test score. How can we help everyone else understand history better? Because this is really important. Because the numbers are the lagging indicator. And what we're doing when we overemphasize a lagging indicator, they're the result of the behaviors and the beliefs of the team. And so instead of lifting up the lagging indicator, we want to lift up the leading indicator, the belief and the behavior, and celebrate that, because that's shared and that's something that everyone can emulate.
Mm.
Thank you, Lisa. That's very nice advice.
I have a question on that because now it makes the rewards becoming a noble purpose. It's also become a noble purpose for salespeople to realize that, oh, okay, I'm getting the rewards because of the works that been done in the perfectly for our clients, right? The concern that I'm having at the moment is that there's a lot of organizations, they are performing really, really well. Okay, number wise speaking, they performing well. So it's very hard to change those sales leader as those organization to really, if applying, if reverse the way that they're selling, they're training people, they are doing the, the coaching for the salespeople into the new directions. It's very hard because they've been successful for a long time, right? So,
Right.
yeah. So how can we tell them that they can be more successful if they re-engineer the way that they do sales, training in the organization, Lisa?
So there's three things.
Mm,
Number one, the numbers don't lie.
mm,
The numbers don't lie. The numbers, the research tells us, if you will point your team towards this noble purpose,
mm.
you will be more successful.
Okay.
The second thing I'll tell you is, this is not a complete 180.
Mm,
This is adding on top of.
mm,
It's just like you're already making a good dinner. Now you're going to serve it up beautifully.
ah,
The dinner is still good, just like it always was, but now you're going to serve it up in a really beautiful way. So that's the second thing, is that this is adding on, not a total 180.
mm.
Now, if you make terrible products and you hate your customers, this is a 180. Okay? You need to change, because that's really bad. And if you've been screaming and shouting at your salespeople, this is a 180. But if you make something that is helpful to customers, and if you have a business, you probably are already doing something that's helpful to customers, or they wouldn't be buying from you. And if you have salespeople that care about customers, because that's the other thing, is whenever we start sharing this research with companies, they'll almost always say, oh, you know what? Our top salespeople are like that. Oh my God, you're right. Our top salespeople do care about customers. So if you have a sales team that cares about customers already, and you have a product, what we're doing is we're taking what's implicit in your business and we're making it explicit, and we're leading with it. So it's not necessarily, if you've got a pretty good organization, it's not a 180. If you have a terrible organization, it is a 180, and we can help you with that, but we charge a lot more for that. If you have a good organization, what most people do, this is about making it exceptional. This is about ratcheting up. So I said there were three things. Number one, the numbers don't lie. Number two, it's not a 180. Number three, in today's market, you don't have a choice. And I'll tell you why you don't have a choice. Because there are two constituents of people out there that are asking for this. Number one is your employees. People want purpose and meaning at work. And if they don't find it with you, they will jump ship for more money somewhere else. And if they're salespeople and they're good, they can make more money somewhere else.
Yep.
They will either jump ship for a more meaningful job, or if they can't find more meaning, they'll just jump ship for more money. So you got to do it to hold on to your best people and keep them engaged. The second group of constituents that's asking about this is customers, because that became really obvious during the pandemic. Customers are asking, are you here to sell me, or are you here to actually help me? And so as more companies lean into this, if you don't, you will lose any competitive advantage you have. So when you said, what are the reasons? There's three things. One, the numbers don't lie. It works. And we've got lots of evidence. Number two, it's not a 180. It's ratcheting up what's already present. And number three, if you don't do it, someone else will, and you'll lose your best people and you'll lose your best customers.
So if I want to become a seller that with noble purpose, what do I need to change now, Lisa? Change now and learn now.
I'm glad you brought this up because you don't have to wait for your company to change. You do not have to wait for your company to change. You do not have to wait for your boss to change. In our research, we found all kinds of standout salespeople that were laser-like focused on this. So there's three questions you need to ask yourself, and they're in the book, Selling with Noble Purpose. How do I make a difference? How do I do it differently than my competition? And on your best day, what do you love about your job? If you can answer those three questions as a seller, and I don't mean answer in some way that you can put on a website or anything, just answer them for yourself. Just answer them for yourself. Answer them in a way that you could talk to your spouse, your parents, your kids about. How do I make a difference? How do I do it differently? And on my best day, what do I love about my job? That becomes your story about who you are and why you're here.
Wow.
That is your story. You maybe come up with a noble purpose line. The book will tell you how to do it. But even if you don't, just that's your story. So get that story locked and loaded in your head. You are no longer just someone who shows up to hit a number. That's a lagging indicator. You are someone who makes a difference, who does it differently than their competition, who's emotionally engaged. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you simply ask yourself the game-changing question before you do a sales call. That's it. How will this customer be different as a result of doing business with me? Ask yourself that, and you will start showing up as your best self for more sales calls. So don't wait for your boss. Don't wait for your company to go through some purpose process. If you are a company, call us. We can help you do it fast. But don't wait. If you are a person, you can do this because we found individuals in all kinds of average performing companies. We found individual sellers who had this noble purpose, and they were the top performers and they were the happiest.
Wow. Then they are the happiest person also. That is
They're
very
the
important.
happiest.
Yeah. Well, Lisa.
And so we work in two lanes. We are always working in two lanes in everything that we do with individuals, with big companies. One is revenue. We are always working to increase the amount of revenue. And the second parallel track is meaning, pride, purpose, happiness. The profit and the purpose are linked. And so we are always working on those two lanes with how the financial outcomes are impacted and how people feel about their job.
Wow.
And they are directly connected. And you can do that as an individual. So you do not have to sacrifice your personal happiness to be an exceptional seller.
Lisa, I only have 2 minutes of your time here with the show, so I will ask you the final question for today. So we know how the memory vividly happened, at the 14 years old Lisa being able to sell all the donuts for Mr. Kim, right, and make all the money, and you move on, and then you become an expert in the sales. Then you transform organization, help the organization to be better at selling, finding the better purpose for every people to do. You wrote books about that, and we want to know the future. Is there anything that you are doing excitingly that you would love to share now, so Vivian, I, and the audience can celebrate with you in advance?
So a couple of things. One thing that I am doing that I am loving is I'm doing LinkedIn Live. So follow me on LinkedIn. And I'm doing 2 things a week. I'm doing, in my country, I'm doing Friday afternoon and Monday morning. And so we are we're talking about this topic about purpose and about how we experience work. And I'm doing it with my co-author, Elizabeth Latardo. So follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And we will be talking a lot about these concepts. And it's if you're on LinkedIn, it's absolutely free. So follow me on LinkedIn, and that's one thing I'm doing that's really exciting. The other thing that I'm doing is, thanks to COVID, we now do many more virtual programs. and everyone's happy with that. And so one of the things I'm really excited about is I'm doing a lot more work with international clients than I used to, because I am doing some international travel. So I do travel, and I'm doing some big programs outside my country. I'm going to Singapore next week, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to Europe some. But I'm also doing a lot of programs for people virtually. I did a huge program for a group of folks in Korea, and they were there, and I was sitting here in my office, and I zoomed in, did 45 minutes with them. So that's something I'm really excited about, is to be able to work with more international clients, because we really are trying to change the world here. So the world's a big place. We got to get out there.
We hope that one day we're going to be having you to come to Vietnam and give your service to to upgrade the cellular network here also. So Lisa, we and I will be are very thankful for you to spending your morning with us and sharing your amazing story. There's a lot of things in here that I've noted down in my note, and then tomorrow there will be a lot of stories for us to share around our communities, and I really appreciate that. So thank you, and we wish you all the best always,
Such a pleasure.
Lisa. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.